Hey everyone, welcome back to BDG Reviews. As you can see by the title, I am doing this year's vinyl tag. So, 20 questions. I got them written down here. Just about music and records and vinyl and everything. So, I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't usually do these, so I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a shot this time. So, first question. Favorite new release of 2022? For me, that is Sabaton with The War to End All Wars. Is it as good as The Great War? No. But it's still a damn good album. And honestly, anytime you have Sabaton with a new release, it's always a good thing. So, there we go. Next up, last band or solo artist you saw live. The last band I saw live was Slayer. I don't have any Slayer vinyl. I just never got around to getting any. So I'm going with one of their opening acts at the time, which is Behemoth. This is Grom. This is one of their really early, when they were pure black metal. And good shit. Really is good album. If you haven't heard, Grum or from the Pagan Vassallons or anything like that, definitely check them out because it's really good. Next up, their first album was the best. Guns N' Roses, 100%. I don't know, people really like they like the Use Your Illusion albums. They like the other stuff. It's never really beat Appetite for Destruction, honestly. It just is what it is. Next up, Hat Trick. So essentially show an album that you have on, kind of like all three formats. So I am going with, right here, Bob Dylan, Empire Burlesque. Got it on vinyl, got it on CD, and got it on cassette. So, yeah. Funny thing is, that's not actually my favorite Bob Dylan album. It's actually one of my lesser liked Dylan albums, but I just somehow ended up with copies of, on all formats. Next up, an album that starts and ends in the same letter. That is going to be Belphegor with Necrodamon Terror Satan or Satan. When they add the H into Satan, I have no clue how to really pronounce it. Good album, obviously Blackened Like Death, good stuff. Okay, next is Born in the Same Year as You. I can't actually hold anything up because I don't have anything from this era, but Richie Faulkner, new guitarist for Judas Priest, he was born when I was born, so, like I said, can't hold anything up, don't have any of the newer albums. Hell, honestly, don't really even have much of the older albums. Love Priest, just never got around to it, and I don't know why. Okay, most listened to album in 2022. This is funny because I literally just got this about a couple of weeks ago, honestly, but I've listened to it so many times, and that is Dehumanizer by Black Sabbath. A highly underrated album that, people always, they talk about Paranoid, they talk about Black Sabbath, they talk about, Heaven and Hell. Not enough people talk about Dehumanizer. Great album. Honestly, some of the best, I would say probably the best Ronnie James Dio Sabbath album. And I've said before, I love Ozzy. I love Ozzy on Black Sabbath, but I prefer Ronnie James Dio with Sabbath. I don't know why, it just works. Most listened to artist in 2022. This one is kind of interesting. This is Death Spell Omega. This particular one is the Furnaces of Pelaginesia. If you haven't heard Death Spell Omega, you're doing yourself a disservice. give them a shot. It's just good, like blackened music, you know. Next up, an Australian artist or band. This is going to be no surprise, you know, AC/DC. This particular album, though, Flick of the Switch, highly underrated. No one talks about Flick of the Switch, and I don't know why. A really solid album. Is it a lesser AC/DC album? Yeah, but it's even a lesser AC/DC album is still an AC/DC album, which just like by default makes it better than 90% of the crap that's out nowadays. So there you go. Okay. Surprising purchase of 2022. This was kind of surprising in a weird way. I thought I was going to like it. I didn't realize I was going to like it as much as I did, and that is Sargeist with Feeding the Crawling Shadows. Really solid black metal. As you can no doubt tell, I am a black metal fan. It's probably my favorite genre, honestly. Really solid release. Whoa. Say what you want about these McDonald's glasses. I just fell off my desk. That thing's apparently solid as a rock. Just saying. Okay. An artist band you're complete on. This one was a bit difficult for me, simply because when it comes to vinyl, at least, I tend to pick and choose. There's very few that I go for a full discography. So as a result, I ended up going with someone who had a really small discography. That's Robert Johnson. So I got, Genius of the Blues, the complete master takes. It's Robert Johnson. You know, I've said before, how awesome is it when you get someone and their whole thing is like, you know, they sold their soul to the devil at the crossroads to learn how to play guitar. So rock and roll, so awesome. Great old school blues. I mean, probably, you know, I'd venture to say, I don't know, one of the best blues men of all time. Next up, a great run of 3 albums. Tons of bands have their trifectas. You know, I decided to go with one that is just an awesome band, somewhat controversial. If you've watched my channel, you've probably seen them before. I'm not going to keep these on the screen for long. Don't want YouTube kind of being a dick. So yeah, I'm going with Black Magic SS. So we have Kaleidoscope Dreams, Spectral Ecstasy, and Rainbow Nights. Yeah, if you want to get a better look at those covers, pause the video. I'm not bringing them back on. Really good mixture of like psychedelic and like black metal. It works so well. You wouldn't think it would work. Damn, itchy nose. Damn. But it works surprisingly well, and they're really good albums. And I love them. You know, leave the whole everything else beside. You know, like people saying like, oh, like they're Nazis or whatever. Some people saying not. Forget all that stuff. It's just good music. I don't care. So next up, an 80s soundtrack. If you've watched this channel for a long time, you'll know one of my favorite movies, and one of my favorite soundtracks happens to be Dune, the original David Lynch Dune. I love the movie. I have multiple copies. I probably need to do another video showing off like the different versions that I have, because it's grown considerably since the last one. And this soundtrack, it's by who was it did it? Is it oh man, is it Tangerine Dream? I want to say. I don't know. It might have been. I can't remember. But really solid release. Also, that cover, I fixed that myself. Check back in my videos. I got a I got one back there on how to repair messed up front cover, and that's it. So yeah. Next up, we lost them in 2022. So I had to go with it. I had to go with Meatloaf. The guy was a musical genius, and unlike some other geniuses, self-proclaimed geniuses, Meatloaf never claimed it, but he was, and the world's a smaller place without him. Just saying. Okay, disappointing purchase in 2022. This one was disappointing just because it's not a bad album. It's just, I don't know, I was expecting better. And that is the Cult Wildflower. I was expecting, electric level Cult. And, it's alright. It's not bad. But, at the same time, it's nothing. I'm not going to write home about, hey, I got the Wildflower album by the Cult. It's like, nah. Next up, a non-vinyl purchase. This is something I've showed these off on this channel before, but it's something I've got into recently, and that's this Overkill box set, and it's more so not so much the set itself, but just this format, where you get a bunch of albums on these. They're just little slipcases, and you get kind of the first 5 or 6 albums of a band's discography or whatever. And it's just a good way to, get releases of a band without having to pay extremely high dollar, for what you're getting. And also, let's be honest, with the price of vinyl nowadays, I pick, I was gonna get all of Overkill probably on vinyl, but, I was like, nah, I'll grab the CD, I'll listen to them, I'll decide which ones I want on vinyl, because, as I said before, I pick and choose. If I like X album, I don't like X album, I'm not getting X album. Is what it is. Okay, next one. You found a grail. Yes, I did. And that is X Japan with Vanishing Vision. I love this album. This is actually a Korean bootleg, because I will not pay $500 for a Japanese original pressing. If I could find one at a reasonable price point, I paid, I think, $120 for this, which is more than I would have liked to have paid, but it's a great album. And that cover is just awesome. I mean, you know what? I don't care what you say. You'll get the people oh, it's misogynistic or whatever. I don't care. It screams rock and roll. Next up, a space-themed album, sleeve, or song. I'm going with Voivod, Dimension Hatros. Essentially, the progenitors of, Canadian thrash, and, always had that, sci-fi space element to it, and great album. Honestly, anything by Voivod is really great. Next up, show some V-Cult or a present. I'm going with a present. This is from my buddy Will, and that is Mayhem with Dawn of the Blackhearts. Yep. Everyone... This is the one that, people... They show off. I get it. It's Mayhem. It's the bootleg album. Honestly, to this day, I don't believe that this is actually a bootleg. I mean, Euronymous took that photo. How did that photo get out to someone to make it onto a bootleg? No. He was totally behind the release of that, but it was one of those, official bootlegs, the ones that they don't talk about, and officially, it's a bootleg. But, we all know who it really came from. And last up, show and album released in 1973. I'm sure many people who have done this vinyl tag have showed this one, but I'm going to show it as well, and that is Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies. You can't go wrong with Alice. It doesn't matter. And there you go. So yeah, this is kind of like my first time really doing a proper vinyl tag. I did one once before, but it was like, essentially, I picked and choose from like, maybe 3 different years and just found the questions that were most relevant to me, and I answered those. But, I thought this time, what the hell, I'll give it a proper shot. So, this is now, I think, the 13, 14-minute mark, so it's been a decently long video. If you've never been to my channel before and you just happen to show up due to this vinyl tag, I review horror movies. I have vinyl updates. All sorts of stuff. Feel free, subscribe. It can't hurt you. That being said, that's it for me. See you next time.